They thought killing him would end it. But gods don't die like men. With Caesar dead, the Republic had no heart. Only knives. Mark Antony, Caesar's right-hand man, stood over his fallen emperor, anger burning in his eyes. You didn't kill a tyrant. You killed Rome's soul. Around him, the crowd looked on with fear. They watched their leader fall, and they feared his power would rise again in the darkness of this night. In the shadows, Brutus stood firm, Atticus by his side. He had done what he believed was right, but at what cost? Antony raised his hand, silencing the murmurs. Did you think Caesar would die and you would rule? Then he pointed towards the forum. Come, see how the spoiled fruit of this great republic has rotted from within. At the foot of the statue of Julius Caesar, Antony read his friend's last will and testament. The people listened intently, waiting for the next shoe to drop. All eyes were on Antony, some hopeful, others filled with dread. As he read, his face drained of color. What he read, the people could not hear, but his voice echoed with growing horror. When he finished, he stepped back, his face pale. Caesar had named his heir, a boy barely old enough to shave. The whispers began anew, but this time they were confused, angry, desperate. Who? The boy? What of Rome? The crowd surged forward, demanding answers. Suddenly, a new figure stepped into the light. It was Cleopatra, Caesar's lover and queen of Egypt, her face veiled, her eyes blazing with silent fury. She wore all black as if to mock the occasion. To her, this was not a funeral, but an execution, a public shaming. Even in death, she saw only strength in Caesar. When the people saw her, they fell silent, turning to watch the Egyptian queen. In the silence, her words cut like a knife. He was crowned in daggers. My son will be crowned in flame. She turned back to leave, satisfied that she had made her presence known. People looked back at the boy. He was just a child. How could he possibly lead Rome? Now they understood why Caesar had kept his heir a secret. The throne would cause another war, a civil war, one in which there would be no victors. Yet even in the face of all this opposition, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, remained calm. He knew this moment would come. His father had prepared him for it. His father would have wanted him to be strong, so he would be. He walked to the far end of the forum and stopped beside a small pile of wood and hay. A small flame flickered, reflecting in his young eyes. All eyes were on him as he reached out to touch the flame. Before anyone could stop him, Mark Antony stepped forward and placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. The crowd flinched, unsure of what Antony would do. Would he let the boy light the pyre? Would he take revenge? But instead, to everyone's surprise, Antony put a finger to his lips, silencing the crowd. Then he motioned for them to gather around Caesar's pyre. Brutus is an honorable man, Antony began, his voice echoing through the forum. He came to Caesar's house with bare hands, not as a hired assassin. But where was his honor when Caesar cried out his name and bled? His words were poison, dripping slowly, steadily, finding cracks in the people's resolve. People shifted uncomfortably, guilt creeping in. Was Brutus truly honorable? Hadn't they all cheered at the news of Caesar's death? The seed of doubt planted by Antony grew into a weed of suspicion. The people started shouting, blaming, accusing. This was exactly what Antony needed. Their decision to kill Caesar had been based on fear, ambition, and ego. Now he offered them a chance to stand against the true evil, the evil that united them all. He led them to the bonfire, calling out each senator by name. Some tried to hide, but it was too late. Antony dug deeper, stirring the pot until every senator was implicated. When he was done, the crowd was a roaring beast, hungry to tear its prey to pieces. The senators had nowhere to go. They fled to the Temple of Bologna, hoping to hide. But the mob found them and tore down the statues of Caesar, defiling the very temple the senators had sought to protect themselves in. Some of the mob ran to find Brutus and Cassius, but they were gone, leaving the city in chaos. All that was left of Caesar were his friends and his legacy. Across town, Brutus stood at the top of a tower, watching the city burn. Below him, the mob descended upon the homes of the senators, tearing up the marble floors and burning the silk curtains. All the while, Octavian remained calm, moving among the crowds, his face resolute. Next to him, Cleopatra observed the spectacle with interest, enjoying the view from afar. As for Antony, he stood in the middle of the forum, watching the city burn. Behind him, Caesar's pyre crackled and popped. Above him, Caesar's spirit soared, happy to see his work was not in vain. For Cassius and Brutus, the road ahead was dark. They had killed the most powerful man in Rome, but they had failed to consider the consequences. Meanwhile, the people felt empowered by their actions, freed from the shackles of tyranny, or so they thought. Deep in the catacombs below Rome, Caesar's assassins plotted their next move. They knew the people would never accept their rule. All around them, the fires of rebellion burned brightly. The people wanted revenge, and they knew they had to make a stand. At the center of it all was Octavian. He was the true heir to Caesar's legacy, the one who would carry on Caesar's work. Cleopatra, however, was not so sure. She had seen firsthand the power of the people. Could they really be controlled? Would they accept a puppet ruler? Only time would tell what would happen next in the battle for Rome. And now the people are free from the shackles of tyranny. That is until Octavian took power and made Rome into an empire. And now the people are free from the shackles of tyranny. That is until Octavian took power and made Rome into an empire. And now the people are free from the shackles of tyranny. That is until Octavian took power and made Rome into an empire. But the question remains, who will wear the crown of Rome? Will it be Antony, Octavian, or Cleopatra? Well, we may never know. But that doesn't mean we can't speculate. Long live the empire. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Fallen, a reimagining of the life and death of Julius Caesar. If you want to support us, please subscribe. It helps us keep making these videos. In the meantime, here's a little secret. We actually have 2 more episodes planned, covering the aftermath of Caesar's assassination and the rise of the Roman Empire. But here's the catch. We need your help to make them. If this episode gets 2,000 likes, we'll greenlight production on episode 6. So what are you waiting for? Click that like button and let's bring this story to a close.